As a nursery operator of coffee, I make sure that the coffee we produce are of the best quality by getting the best quality seed. We are satisfied by Uganda Coffee Development Authority and officials from the Ministry of Agriculture. Having selected your certified seed, the next step is how you are going to plant this seed in the nursery bed. The selection of the site is also very important. In a sense, there has to be more or less a level ground, not on the slope. Then the soil must be fertile soil so that the seed germinates very well. When I'm measuring the width of my seed bed, I only use farmer's measurements because this part, like this one, is roughly 30 centimeters or 1 foot. So when I do them 3 times, I'm roughly having my own meter. So that is the width which I want my seed bed to be. I'm making simple trenches where I'm going to plant the seed. Next step which I'm going to do is to plant the seeds which are already selected from the certified producers of the seeds. You make sure that this one is mainly planted in the line, in a sense to make us sure that if in case you have any problem, you can easily identify whether there is any problem, whether disease or insects. So, rather than when they are just clumped together, you may find it very difficult to identify the disease like a damping off or any other form of disease. But when they are lined up, you easily observe those. And when you come to other practices of controlling this, it becomes easier because of the lining up they have. Covering it, usually because of the required nutrient of this seed, use most of the very good fertile soils, and where possible, mix it with some manure, and then spread it on the seeds which are planted. Make sure don't cover it too much with the soil. It will have a problem of germinating, but at the same time, make sure that it's covered. When planting, the soil has to be wet to simplify its germination later on, and later on its root development. When I'm watering here, I also make sure that I don't pour too much water, not try to splash it too much, gently. After making the first trench and planting it, we move the second one, and the second one should be at least a foot from the first one. Again, this gap helps us to manage the plants in proper manner, in a nutritionally, weed control, and other observations in the nursery, which are very vital, so that at least in case there is any outbreak of any disease like a damping off, it does not easily affect one line to second line. So I measure one line, 1 foot from the first line, and move the second foot, make a trench as we have already made here, and then start planting it. After planting the seed and watering it, you need to make sure that the soil is kept moist. We keep the soil moist by mulching with dry grass. This will not only help in keeping the soil moisture down, but will also help in reducing the weeds which might have germinated during that process, and also reduce the temperature. This one is good when the seed has not germinated, but when it's starting germinating, this mulching material will interfere with the process of the seed germinating. So we need to remove it. And when we remove it, we construct a simple shade to cut down some of these sun rays and also to reduce the pressure of water when watering. And this is usually this one is a meter high from the bottom to the top. This step takes place when the seed has germinated. That's when you construct this top shade of 1 meter above the ground. Since water is one of the most important inputs for a nursery, here we have to make sure that this nursery bed has enough moisture all the time. This one follows a watering regime, and this one is usually indicated by look and the touch of the soil. You pick the soil like this one, you squeeze it. If it makes a simple clump without any water oozing out, it means it is the right water in that soil. You pick it up like this one, you try to squeeze it. When you open and it falls apart, it indicates that that soil needs water. When the plants have germinated, you remove the mulch which was on the soil so that you kept the second, put it on the top of the shed which you have already made. And this is the practice. More pieces, not much, so that otherwise if you move it too fast, it will break the seeds which have just started germinating. When we are watering these plants which have already germinated, we water it from the top of the shed like this, and then the water trickles down gently to the plants. It goes down by drops. This is usually the process which we do after 1 month, because after 1 month these seeds, if they are good, they would have germinated already, and they will stay with this place before transplant in the pots. To get healthy plantlets, you have to have good soil, and here you tend to have black forest soils, which is relatively fertile and will help these plants to grow well. Before we bring these pots in the lines, we have to fill them with the soils, but the size varies, but the best one should be 4 inches by 6, especially with the seeds. Then also these pots have to have some holes, which will help water to come out when you are doing the watering, because accidentally you may put in too much water, and if there are no holes, the plant will get waterlogged. For the benefit and quick growth of the plants, this soil has to be fertile, and where it is not fertile, mix it with some form of manure, especially the cow dung manure will help a lot. And where it may not be available, very little DAP, the ammonium phosphate, may help you to develop the roots much faster. When the plantlets are ready to be planted in the pots, we first arrange the pots in an organized manner, either in columns. Then we water those pots so that when it comes to planting the plantlets into the pots, the soil is soft and wet enough. When our seedlings in the nursery bed have reached, they are within the 2nd month or toward the 3rd, they are roughly at this height, and they are ready for transplanting into pots. Having arranged the pots, we make a hole in the middle, like this one. If you are 2 people, 1 person goes on making holes out. Then the second person comes with a seed, like this one. If this taproot is too long, decap it with your finger to avoid this taproot bending when you plant it, when you have not decapped it. But when decap it, as the plant grows, it forces its taproot downwards and in a straight manner. So you have now decapped it. Now I press it in the middle of the hole. When I pressed it, making sure that the roots are down, then I squeeze the soil a bit. Make sure that these roots are not left hanging. They are in contact with the soil. That's a very serious point to note, because if you make a bigger hole and simply put the plant without squeezing it, the rate of survival are likely to be little. With the watering regime, in the first week it has been more frequent, in the sense that young plant requires much nutrient, and then it has not also hardened it. This water will help in two aspects. First, for the nutritional element, to have more moisture. Then secondly, in controlling the temperature. And usually this watering is best done to have good effect either very early in the morning or late in the evening. And the frequency of watering will depend on the season. But when they are still young, usually have at least every 2-3 days. As they grow older, regime changes. And when you are about to go to them, for them to go in the field, then they go into the stage of hardening them. You gradually subject them to harder environment so that they get accustomed to the field conditions. This shade where we are, with about 60 to 50 light intensity, is where we do the gradual hardening of the plant before it goes into the field. These ones have come into the 4th month, and you can look at the pairs of leaves which they have developed. This is the cotyledon leaf, first pair, second pair, and then they have a third pair. These ones are ready to go into the field. Here you can see that they are having about 5 pairs of leaves. Beyond that, we became too old for being going into the field. Here you also note the size of the stem. The one which tends to do well in the field, a bit stout, and the stem is relatively thick compared to its height.